Chapter 1157 of the One Piece manga dropping, a lot of things are revealed, and let's just say this chapter flips a lot of what the community once thought on its head. So strap in, because I'm about to get real in depth with this video. But before I do jump into the video, if you guys don't enjoy content like this, you know what to do. Hit that like button and subscribe, as I do post content like this regularly, and to be honest, it's a win-win. You guys show me love and support, and I give it back to you in the form of videos. Whether it's One Piece, other anime, or just fiction in general, in due time I plan on covering it, so be there when I go there. I feel like I've rambled on long enough, so I'll jump straight into the video and cover chapter 1157 of the One Piece manga. Now after a little while, we are back to the cover pages, and in this one we can see Yamato alongside a few other people praying at the guy that's related to Zoro. Looks kind of like Zoro's grave, obviously, since he went out and died for Wano and whatnot. And yeah, I do believe that this part may give us a little bit more. I don't think that this is going to be it, but I mean, well, this cover story is definitely going to go on for a little bit longer, so we're going to have to see what it's going to give us. I've said from the very beginning that it's going to give us a massive payout, so we just gotta sit here and wait, man. But transitioning into the chapter, we do have the Rocks pirates robbing the Foot Colony Temple of the International Philanthropy Federation. And so you then get to see Big Mom and a lot of the other Rocks pirates running away with this loot. Now this is actually kind of sad, as the people are saying please stop, that money was donated for poor children in need. But the Rocks pirates don't care. They're like, yeah, right, if that's true, then why hasn't it been turned over? You were gonna keep it, right? And if that's actually the case, then it's not as sad as we once thought it was. But we do get to see that obviously they're running and whatnot. But what happens next is pretty funny. You see, the person that looks like Caribou is on the phone to a few people, right? And they're saying lower the lift, we're still underground. And then he then hangs up. Now he then says shut up already, and it says hey Shakky, and then Shakky's like, oh wait, I totally forgot about them. Turns around and throws a bomb down. Shakky then laughs and then says, this way the rest of us will get bigger cuts. And then the guy that's like Caribou says suckers. Now you obviously then have the civilians, or what probably looks like a king or person of that place, is insane. Damn it, these bastards know everything about us. Isn't the army here yet? And then the guys in the background said they're close and whatnot. But then you obviously then get to see that the island is then keeping them enclosed. And so that's obviously why Big Mom is like, move out of the way, I'm gonna bust it down. But then she's like, what? And then the next panel, hey man, Whitebeard had enough. After obviously getting bombed, I would do the exact same thing. He basically tries to sink the entire island, and you have Big Mom yelling his name. And everyone's like, the temple is sinking. Yo, I can't lie. The Rocks pirates, like, aura aside and everything, they probably were the funniest group, because you had so many people just doing things for themselves and whatnot. And yeah, man, this is funny. And so coming out of the hole that they were in, you then have Kaido talking to Whitebeard, and he's like, I gotta admit, I'm jealous that I can't do that. And you guys gotta remember that Kaido here is like 15, and so you could see him looking up to Whitebeard as some sort of like older brother. And so Whitebeard's responding with, interesting and getting a power, huh? You'd better choose wisely if you seek one out, or you'll be stuck with it for the rest of life. And that's where Kaido's like, good point. And you have Silver Axe, who was with them, and says, who was it? Which one of you tried to ditch us down there? And then the Caribou look at one, points at Shakky, who, oh, great turn, no, does have a devil fruit. And Silver Axe yells, figures it would be you, Shakky. And then you know what, I can't lie, so far Shakky has been the funniest one. And he's like, oh, Kyokun, thank goodness you survived. I was worried about you. Hey Shakky, There's no need to lie. But this is where we then have Rocks, and Rocks is with Captain John and Gunzoe. And they're like, what are you all doing? Everyone move it. Then in the background, you have Shakky and Silverax fighting like they're Zoro and Sanji. Hey, this crew's funny, man. But then Rocks asks Gunzoe if they at least kept the treasure safe, and Gunzoe says of course. That's when Captain John says, hey Rocks, look at the shore. And so in the next panel, they then see the Navy, and Rocks has his laugh. Vohahaha. You know what? I need to hear that in the anime to know how I feel about that. But he then says, new challenges have shown up. Hey, knock it off with the infighting. This ain't the time. We should have been getting ready to ship off. With Rocks saying that the Marines are everywhere, Whitebeard points out that it was fast and wonders if somebody leaked their plans. There seems to be a traitor inside of the crew, but the crew doesn't know yet. We couldn't scratch off a lot of them, and so the only person that it would leave would be Silverax or Gunzoe. But Whitebeard wouldn't do that, Big Mom wouldn't do that, Kaido sure as hell wouldn't do that, Rocks has no reason to do that, Captain John maybe? But that's about it. The rest of them don't have a reason to do that. Maybe Stassi? I don't know. But anyway, Rocks says, screw it, no point in prepping to sail now, get ready to fight, and he says plunder everything and sink them all. Now this is pretty cool, as Rocks is the only pirate we actually see fighting the Marines head on, unless there's somebody directly on the ship. Like last chapter we saw that Roger would rather run from the Marines than fight them. Exact same with Whitebeard. This is pretty cool. And so in the next panel it then says, in a mere 2 years since their formation, the record of the Rocks crew spoke for itself. 16 documented raids, 76 sunken ships, 14 ports reduced to ash, 5 towns wiped off of the map, 1 nation brought to ruin, 3 unprecedented violations of Article 18 of international law, and 25 criminal records quietly erased. Even with the future Pirate King Gold D. Rogers sailing the seas, it would not be an overstatement to refer to this period as the era of Rocks. Hey, that nigga Rocks was the devil, man. Something was wrong with him. If he wanted to do it, he would do it himself on feet by himself. Like what? Rocks is the devil. He was the. Are we? Like, you had Roger on the seas, you had everybody else on the seas at this time, but it was the era of. There was no great pirate era when Rocks was around. It was his era. He was the devil. He was the devil. Right, you gotta think about it. Like, Rocks' bounty wasn't as high as Roger's for some reason. Maybe him finding the One Piece was making him different, but damn. Maybe, you know what, maybe they lied. Maybe because they erased it from history, that's why nobody knows that he had the highest bounty in history. That's probably the case. There's no way you could do all of that and you don't have a higher bounty than Roger. Like, I'm sorry, Roger ain't half as bad. Like, I know Roger was doing some bad things though. Like, he was what did Roger do again? He had like a torture on his ship. I don't know. Now we move on to somewhere else in the New World, in Nishi, and this is where we get to see people talking, and they're like, what are you doing? Leave this place at once, Harald. All non-affiliated nations are considered lawless territories. Don't concern yourselves with humans living here. They have no rights. Now, one thing I'm going to say is that this part is like this chapter is funny all around. Oda was really in this bag here. I don't know why people said post-time skip ain't funny, but you're gonna see why I call it funny. Anyway, you didn't have Harald saying that's messed up. The world government can't just decree everything like that. And And that is where the guy's just like, what? And then Harald continues to say, let them go. This country gave aid to Elbaf during our famine, obviously during a time when they weren't doing as well, and they did it out of the kindness of their hearts. They are friends and saviors. That's when the people in the background say, King Harald, save us. And King Harald says, we're not leaving without repaying our debt. Then have the Marines saying, Harald, you understand that Elbaf is under consideration for becoming a member nation, correct? Intervening to help us would be one thing, but you only hurt your membership aid if you intervene on the behalf of a non-affiliated country. That's when the guy then shoots an innocent bystander and says, so stay out of the way, Harald. The woman's obviously shot, and then Harald's like, you scum. You aren't human. And hey, man, this is where it becomes funny, because why is that? Yo, Harald, I get why you did all of that, and it doesn't matter what you do, you're gonna look funny doing it, but he's like this, he's like the size or double the size of the ship. He's got salt. Oh, I don't know why I find this so fun. It's just the way he's jumping at it. Like, if he was a regular sized human, it wouldn't be as funny, but it's the fact that he's so big. And so this is where we then get to see a newspaper, well, it seems like a newspaper like saying, where it says, King Harald exposed, Elbaf monarch sinks innocent battleship, alliance with government revealed as a ploy. And in the bottom you can see that's from a newspaper. And what's funny about this is that that is the picture they got of Harald. Him leaping at a ship like that. Yo, I can't lie, I'd laugh if I saw that in the newspaper. But this is where we then shift all the way to Ida's tavern, and you then see that Rox is there and he's laughing, saying, you see, that's the government for you. Let's drink at the castle, Harald. And then Harold's like, don't be dumb, I'm not letting a man with a reputation as bad as yours come into the mainland. And then that's when Rox says, your whole nation should be joining up with me. Come on, Harald, give it up. I can't stand seeing you grovel to the government anymore. Harald then says, sooner or later, Elbaf will become a member nation of the world government. Rox says, did you think shaving your head was a sign of good faith? Is that a cultural thing you got from somewhere? And then he laughs again. And then Harold's like, Garp laughed at me too. Garp. That guy hates the top brass. He'd be better off as a pirate. And that is very much the case. But Harald is then like, they're a massive organization. Sure, they have corrupt trash in their ranks, but the Navy is a fine army. The average Marine helps to save the people on a day-to-day basis. It's like Oda is telling you all that the Navy isn't bad, like a lot of you like to make them out to be. But that's when Harald continues and says, some of them have already come from Elbaf, like John Giant. If our country's warriors followed suit, they could use their boundless strength to really make a difference for people everywhere. And that's where Rox says, that's terrifying. And that is terrifying. Imagine if the whole of Elbaf just joined the Marines. That would make the Marines like borderline unstoppable until you get to the New World. Like you couldn't get past the Grand Line if there's like giants just posted up everywhere. Now Rox continues to talk and then says, why don't you talk some sense into him, Ida? And then that's when Ida's like, I wish I could. If Harald was my son, I'd tell him. And that's when he then also then saying, you should choose your friends wisely. And Rox then says, hey, don't take shots at me. Now it then transitions into Navy HQ, and it then says, if a giant were to roll over in their sleep, people could be crushed to death. If one loses their temper, lives might be lost. Do you really think humans can coexist with such creatures? That's the gist of what they told me. And then somebody else then says, they really said all of that. And then the other person replies by saying, yep. And so you then find out that these four people that are talking are Garp, Sengoku, Otsuru, and Kong. Now I just want to point out that her name is Otsuru, so she's from Wano. Wait, is she from Wano? Maybe her name's just Otsuru and her parents maybe from, she has to be connected to Wano. But at the time, they're all vice admirals, and Kong is currently an admiral. Now, Garp says they are fine letting them join the navy, but that's all, huh? And then that's where Sengoku says Harald is an honest man. He's trying to learn from history and change Elbaf. That's when Otsuru then says there's rumors about him being scoured out by rocks. If that's true, the navy might not be able to stand against them. This just only further confirms how strong Rocks and Harald would be together. It's like the story's shoving it in our face saying, yo, look, Harald was that guy. Like, the navy currently has Sengoku and Garp in their young years, with Kong being extremely active, and they're not even enough. That just says something. But Kong then says, you make good points, but it is what it is. Damn it, we are really stuck between a rock and a hard place. Kong continues by saying, still, you can't deny their wild and violent track record. That's where Garp says, that's exactly the kind of strength I'm after, Kong. Just hurry up and make Elbaf a member nation already. If it were up to me, it wouldn't be an issue. And this just solidifies who Garp is as a character, building on it a little bit more. And this is why I love this chapter. This chapter does a lot for everybody in the old generation. But once more, the chapter then transitions to another place, and it says 42 years ago, Hachinosu. And then everybody's saying this is huge, this is really huge, this is big news. Shakky has quit the Kuja pirates. And that's where everybody's like, that means there's no way we're running to her and seeing it says it can't be. I set sail because I dreamed of being attacked by the Shakky Kuja pirates. And it says, damn it, we've wasted our youth. And it says, Shakky-chan. Oh, yo. This chapter is just, it's too funny, it's too funny. But the chapter then transitions into us seeing somebody that we'd want to see obviously react to the situation. And that is Clarissa, and she is chilling with Big Mom, and Big Mom has all of her kids just chilling. First, now this is where we get to see one of the funniest interactions in the chapter. You have Clarissa looking at the paper saying, what are you up to, Shakky? And Big Mom's then like, do you reckon she quit so she could chase after a man like you did, Clarissa? Does love always tend to ruin the Isle of Women? And Clarissa claps back and says, like you'd know anything about the pain of love. You crank out kids like it's popcorn. She clocked her down. But she then decides to move on and say, anyway, I honestly can't imagine her getting lovesick. I'd never forgive her if she went after Roger. But what's funny about this is that you have Stussy being very, very jealous and saying it's always Shakky this and Shakky that. At least you've only got eyes for me, right, Newgate? And White Bit's like, I've never even been in love with you. And then Stussy gets on him and is like, what did you just say? I'm the popular sensation, Miss Buckin. And White Bit's like, ain't that enough? And she's like, no, I want you. I mean, fairs. But in the panel below, you didn't have people saying, no way, something crazy is happening. And they say, what's wrong? And then they point out that the Kuja pirates are coming towards the coast. And this is where you then have one of the most beautiful women in One Piece, I dare even say most beautiful, I mean she's tied with Boa for me, steps onto the island. And it says, in Pirate Island's history, this incident is said to rank among the greatest, even with all that has yet to come. The arrival of the world's most beautiful idol caused a commotion in this hive of murderous fiends. And that's when you then have people saying, it's a goddess, I can die happily. They're all asking her what brings her here and what not. And Shakky's just admiring the island. But before she did, she was like, thank you for the ride, Jotoma. And Jotoma's like, yes, ma'am. Now for a moment, everybody thought that she was going to join the Rocks Pirates, but no. Instead, she's just gonna live there for a while. And everybody was very, very flabbergasted. Shakky continues walking and says, quitting won't matter to the Marines as they will always be after me since I was a pirate. So I'm gonna hide out here for a while with all of you. And in a very cute way, she then asked them if they will protect her. And everybody says, of course we will. Now, she then says this place smells, and everybody says we'll clean up right away. She then says, I want to open the store, and they say they will build one for her. And then they then say, let's grow some flowers for her. Now, the Rocks pirates are very confused with all the commotion, and so Rocks is like, what's all this noise about? Why are you rats making such a racket? That's when everybody notices that the Rocks pirates are back and says this is bad. And then they say, don't blame her, Captain Rocks. This was our doing. And then he's like, what's she doing here? So in the next panel and final panel of the chapter, the narrator says the pirate island of Hachinosu was abuzz with excitement. They say the wait just to get in the bar would be over a month. And as we get to see oh my, yo, I can't lie, really, I don't know how you are going out and seeing young girls when you had this at home. It's not, to me, this is insane. But you then have Shakky saying, welcome, I'm so happy to see you. You'll be my first customers. What would you like to drink? And that's where everybody, even including Whitebeard, says she is an angel and has their hearts pumping out of their chests. The narrator continues on by saying Shakyaku was like a flower blooming in the dry wasteland. Her very presence enriched the island. The inhabitants of Hachinosu came to covet her as a treasure, an irreplaceable crown jewel. Unfortunately, a treasure is always the inevitable target of a thief. And that's where Shakky's then like, I just can't open the bowl. And then Captain John's like, I'll give you my hand. And Rook says this place was great. Yo, I wanna see the next chapter just so I can see all of the girls' reactions. But Rox is looking like a fool. He looks exactly like Sanji. But with that next panel, we then get to see that in the Room of Authority, very well, relay this to Harald. We shall accept Elbaf's submission into the world government on one condition. The Elbaf warriors must kill Rox. Now, this is right. So what the community and what I'm ascertaining is that Shakky may actually be the treasure that they stole. You see the way how the narrator is talking about her, right? Yeah, that seems like she's the treasure. Now, there is a lot to cover with this chapter, so I'm definitely gonna make a follow-up video. So I do suggest all of you comment down below some of your theories or just what you're taking away from this chapter. But I'm going to focus on a few things here. One of the things I want to focus on is the whole Shakky and Boa thing. You see, a lot of people are confused at how Boa doesn't entrance people as much as Shakky does, and the explanation behind it is pretty simple. Boa isn't as nearly as flirty as Shakky is. That is why nobody has like their hearts pumping out of their chest. Well, they do, but they don't have it on a consistent basis. What Shakky does is she leans into it a lot, while Boa does at certain points, but she just lets her beauty speak for itself instead of Shakky, who does do that but likes to also pose with it to then get people to then obviously egg them on. That is the difference between the two of them, and that is why people do not react that way over her. That was the main thing I wanted to talk about though, so yeah, how about we wrap up this video? But yeah, with that being said, that is the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, as I enjoyed making it, and uploading 2 videos in one day is kind of tiring. So yeah, I shall see you guys in the next video. I love you all, thank you for the support, so yeah, goodbye.